is going to be very mindful of who's managing the water and air or being damaged.
Connected to iPhone.
And machinery managing those and keeping them contained in that little bubble of life surrounded by the infinite void. We see that in the novel Leviathan Wakes as well. The residents of those asteroids consider anyone tampering with life support to be essentially committing a capital crime, a point made in the show too, but not emphasized quite as much. They do make a couple of errors though. First, water as a raw material isn't something an asteroid colony on Ceres would ever lack, nor any place much further out. Once you get out to Jupiter and beyond the frost line, we get reminded that the first and third most common elements in the universe are hydrogen and oxygen. H2O is essentially the most common molecule in the universe, after molecular hydrogen, since helium doesn't bond to anything. Like all noble gases, it's very aristocratic and snobby. The other big one being that Ceres was spun up for more gravity, one of the big engineering accomplishments of Tycho Station, another being the Nauvoo, a generation ship with a rotating interior similar to the O'Neill cylinders we'll be looking at next week. That path works fine, but spinning an asteroid to generate more gravity does not. Ceres is the largest asteroid out there, and while there are over 1 million asteroids in the belt, Ceres has fully a third of the belt's mass in it, enough that it's actually a dwarf planet like Pluto. In spite of that, it would take 6,000 clones of Ceres to equal the mass of Earth, and surface gravity is only 3% of Earth normal. So you'd want more gravity there, and certainly on any asteroid habitat, as even for most decent-sized asteroids, the gravity is so small you could jump off one and never fall back down again. However, you can't fix that by spinning one, and indeed if you did opt to change the rotational rate of an asteroid, it would usually be to slow it down. Most rotate a good deal faster than Earth, and Ceres does so every 9 hours. But they aren't rotating very fast in terms of speed, which is good because if they did, they'd fly apart. The faster you spin something, the more centrifugal force it experiences, and as we discussed many times on the channel, you can use that as artificial gravity. However, it is gravity that points outward from the spin axis, meaning the poles experience no change, while the equator gets the most spin gravity. The problem is, that artificial gravity is in the opposite direction of actual gravity. It's flinging you away from the planet, moon, or asteroid, not pulling you in. That's why we say we live on a planet, but we say we would live inside a rotating habitat. You're not adding to Ceres' gravity by spinning it, you're decreasing it. Indeed, that's one of the tricks we've discussed for making high-gravity planets easier to live, or orbital rings around gas giants or other supermassive astronomical bodies. People occasionally talk about hollowing an asteroid out, then spinning it and living in it, but that's a bit backwards too. Your typical asteroid is nothing but a loosely held together ball of gravel. Give it an Earth's gravity worth of spin, and it will fly apart. Other than that, the basic concept is fine. You can hollow an asteroid out and not spin it, and instead stick a rotating habitat inside it, whose sides are high tensile strength material, not a wad of gravel. And it's a very good place to put one, again our topic for next week. The right way to do it for a place like Ceres would be to drill holes down all over the asteroid like a golf ball's dimples, only deeper, and put in cylinder habitats in those holes, pointing down. Then, if you wanted to, you could dome over that with glass and drop the planet's spin down to once every 24 hours. However, while on this channel we tend to casually discuss manufacturing things the size of planets, it is worth noting that doing so requires insane amounts of manpower, or at least robots. I tend to expect that we will have very good robots before we are seriously colonizing space, but that's hardly guaranteed. Even then, for any given construction project, there are limitations, even if only because you can think of other things you'd like to do with those resources and manpower. In theory, I could build a greenhouse over my entire backyard. In practice, I have one that's 12 foot by 20, and I tend to feel I went a little excessive just doing that, especially on occasions I find myself having to perform hasty maintenance on it in foul weather. Maintenance is even less pleasant in space, where there is nothing, except for lethal levels of radiation and the occasional hypervelocity micrometeor. For any given habitat in space, there is going to be a line where people say, this is quite enough. Where they draw it will of course depend on what the minimum they need is and the most they can afford, and will settle somewhere in between, but likely much closer to the minimum in the early days in space. That's even more true of spaceships, since how fast they can go is controlled by how massive they are. You might be able to build several acres of forest on a ship, but someone is bound to ask if something smaller can do the job, since it means your trips are shorter or carry more goods. This is likely to be particularly true of more high-tech civilizations, and someone is likely to point out that some virtual reality setup is likely to be way cheaper and provide all the landscapes you want. How far you can push something like that depends on what the acceptable norms are, and again, those get sculpted by the pressing needs and stresses of your local civilization. We often see discussion of whether or not space colonies will be vegetarian due to efficiency needs, but even that might be not looking far enough. There's a lot of old sci-fi where you'd see people eat meal capsules, swallowing some vitamin-sized pill that was apparently a whole meal, and that's quite unrealistic, of course. As we noted last episode in Portable Power, fats, carbs, and proteins aren't as energy dense as, say, gasoline, but not by so much that you could get all of your calories out of a pill-sized object, even if you could metabolize hydrocarbons for all of your nutrient needs. On the other hand, plants themselves aren't that efficient at converting energy into calories, and not terribly fast either, and we could easily see food production in space shift to some genetically tailored algae or even carbs, proteins, and fats that were made artificially. You can make those in a beaker after all, no plant or animal is required. You might see everyone in space eating some carefully synthesized gruel with artificial taste added, or even folks getting tongue implants that just simulated the taste. Even augmented reality overlays that made you feel like you were eating a 7-course meal instead of algae paste. Throw in a bit of peer pressure, and you could have folks continue to eat that way long after their settlement could easily provide more classic cuisine just because that's how they do things, and only weak, soft individuals need more. That's how we do things still remains an amazingly common and successful argument, even nowadays when our civilization is dependent on ever-changing and improving technology, and we actually have reliable historical accounts going back long enough to tell us that we haven't always done things that way. So I would imagine it will continue being a common argument in the future too. That could apply to a lot of stuff. We don't know yet how much gravity is enough for a human to live healthily. Our only data is from Earth and zero gravity in orbit, and odds are good we can handle a lot lower gravity than Earth's. Further, we'd expect technology to lower that safe amount even more as time goes on. Artificial gravity is expensive, and the more you want, the more expensive it is. We can only do this by spin, which requires pretty big devices. The more gravity you want, the bigger and stronger that outer spinning shell needs to be, or by constant acceleration. A very popular...
I'm listening to one of my favorite channels. It's called Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur. And he discusses all of the possibilities of future civilizations within the confounds of known science and known physics. So everything that we know basically today and everything that we are capable to do, plus adding on to the fact that, technology and machinery, AI and robotics are constantly being developed better and better. He predicts, what life will be like during the real space age when mankind actually decides to go out and try to colonize the stars, other planets, asteroid belts, fucking comets, meteors, all kind of shit, yo. And I don't know, it's really interesting to me. And he talks about, like, his topics are vastly imaginable, yo. Surviving in the expanses of space, portable power, advanced materials, teleportation, a tribute to Stephen Hawking, civilizations at the end of time, a dying Earth, interstellar warfare, orbital infrastructures. Outward Bound, it talks about colonizing Alpha Centauri, the Fermi paradox, spaceports, Mars, from science fiction to science fact. And he goes on and on and on and on and on about different aspects of what will be possible in what would, in a human lifespan, it would seem like, the distant future. But when you speak of time in general, like 1,000 years isn't a long time, when you're talking about science and breakthroughs and discoveries. So he imagines what we will be capable of, in 500 years, 1,000 years from now. Will we have advanced robots to build, space colonies for us when if we ever actually have to leave our planet, yo? Space kidney stones. It's YouTube. It's on YouTube, and the name of the channel is Science and Futurism with Isaac Author. New episodes every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.
Application in fiction, including in The Expanse, but also one that really only makes sense with some sort of infinite fuel source, or for very specific set distances. Outside of a fairly narrow range, you wouldn't burn fuel that way. Most of the time, you'd accelerate as fast as your crew and ship can handle, then drift, because it shortens the voyage time to do it that way, and because it makes no sense with a reaction drive to accelerate all the way to the moment you flip over and decelerate.
And he talks about all different kind of propulsion systems, everything, yo. Like, go to his channel, yo, Isaac Author, and just look up his video catalog, and he talks about everything, even about getting out of fossil fuels and using different types of energy. Because, like you say, motherfucking trying to traverse the stars, we're not going to really do that burning fuel. We're going to have to come up with some kind of anti-gravity propulsion systems, something close to like a warp drive or something really different, you know what I'm saying? But fossil fuels and modern day propulsion systems are not going to get us to fucking Alpha Centauri. It just won't. And he goes into that on different topics too. Here's some other ones: life support, interstellar empires, weather control, reusable rockets, life on a space colony, spaceship populations, skyhooks, colonizing Alpha Centauri. Like, he talks about everything, yeah.
Because most of that fuel you used in the middle is basically wasted. It's like flowing your engine on the way to a red light.
And that's the main thing that everybody's trying to get to is fusion. So we've already figured out nuclear fission, but one of those, either nuclear fission or fusion, will be probably the best bet for a propulsion system for interstellar travel. Is we have to use some kind of nuclear energy.
If you accelerate at 1g for 1 day, then flip over and decelerate, you will have covered 75 million kilometers, reaching a peak speed of 847 kilometers per second. If instead you accelerated at 4g for a quarter of a day, you will reach that same speed of 847 kilometers per second after 6 hours, having covered just 9 million kilometers so far, and you'll cover the same in your last 6 hours decelerating at 4g. However, the 1g ship was moving for 2 days. We only did half a day up and down with the 4g ship, so it's got 36 more hours drifting at 847 kilometers per second. During that time, it will cover 110 million kilometers, not the 75 the other ship did, plus the 9 million each up and down. 128 million kilometers versus 75. That's 70% more distance covered in the same time with the same fuel. It just burned it faster. So which way do you think folks would go? To add to that, the best defense a ship has against space debris or weapons is the ability to suddenly apply thrust in a random direction if being shot at, and the more, the better. When that happens, the direction of apparent gravity will
He says that all the time too. He's like, for new viewers, you can please, if you want to, you can please turn on the closed captioning because I do have a speech impediment. I have a trouble saying the letter R, like rascally rabbits. And then when you hear him say rascally rabbits, yo, that fucker sounds just like FUD, yo. But he knows that shit. Wascally rabbits.
Suddenly and violently change direction. Just like low but non-zero gravity, we don't have great data on the long-term effects of high gravity on people, but we have exposed human subjects to 1.5 G for as much as 7 days without ill effect. And you can even walk around in that, you just get tired. It might not sound like a big difference over 1 G, but it would make more than a big enough difference that anyone not flying for recreation would do it when they could, and just switch over to spin gravity when they finished their initial burn, even though that meant needing to swap around where the floor was compared to the wall. So it isn't that you'd expect people to adapt to lower gravity so much as they'd adapt to changing gravity, and likely as much as they can safely tolerate, at least those working and living on ships, and that would alter everything about day-to-day life. We tend to put weights and grips on the bottoms of cups on sea vessels because they rock around and you don't want them spilling or sliding. Suction cups see a fair amount of use too, and probably would see more on a spaceship. You tend to want to have padding on everything, tethers connecting stuff, and things that couldn't spill. What's more, you might put airbags in the walls or uniforms people wore, because if a ship suddenly detects an object it needs to slam on the gas to avoid, odds are that will be a computer doing it for minimum reaction time, deciding it has no choice but to do it or lose the ship. No warning to grab stuff, just some siren blasting out to tell you not to prepare to fall, but that you are already doing so. And falling even a couple meters at several times Earth gravity is going to hurt you bad, potentially kill you, and any sharp or hard object nearby could come whipping into you like a sword or a sledgehammer. Odds are good every chair, bench, and bed on that ship is an acceleration couch and has belts and buckles on it. Most of us habitually fasten our seatbelt when we get into a car these days. I'm old enough to imagine.
If you would have listened to Tesla, you would have had free energy so long ago, and then with free energy, we could have put our greatest minds to work on solving other fucking problems. But Henry Ford and your boy, motherfucking can't even think of that motherfucking name now. Exactly. They're just like, no, you're not getting this. Yeah, Thomas. Yeah, Henry and Thomas. This motherfucker like, look, man, you can't get this shit away for free. This is worth money. We gotta sell this shit. Yeah, Morgan, JP, Edison, motherfucking Ford, all the motherfuckers was against that shit, yo. And Tesla was actually working for Tesla was working for Edison, yo. That's how Edison stole all his shit, yo. And then when the man died, somehow all his notes and everything, all that shit disappeared, right? Get the fuck out of here, yo. Like I said, they paused us 100 years in the past and then talk about, we reverse engineering saucers that were found at Roswell, New Mexico. Man, y'all ain't reverse engineering shit, man. That's some fucking Nikola Tesla technology y'all fucking with, man. I think so, yo. I think I did see that from JFK to 9/11. I say, shit, 9/11 was my shit, yo. I've been going extra full steam ever since 9/11. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't my kickoff point, but that was my real quest for like the truth, yo. That shit changed everything. That shit changed the fucking world, yo. And a lot of people don't realize how significantly that event changed the world. But once you look at 9/11 and then start looking at history prior to that shit, and then like you say, you can go all the way back to JFK and all this shit that happened from in between there and now is like, yo, this government just fucking lies to us over and over and over and over and over, and you know, assassinates elected officials and uh, fucking does unauthorized experiments on his population and internment camps and war after war after war and fucking central banks and fiat currency. And the whole shit is a fucking game, yo. The whole shit is a game. Oh yeah, that's the thing. Like, man, during the wars, everybody was baking off of that shit. Them motherfuckers over there driving Ford vehicles, IBM. When the Nazis was motherfucking stamping the motherfucking Jews and keeping a number log on these motherfuckers, yo. IBM had the computers that catalog all the fucking Jewish inmates and all that shit, yo. They say Ford was working with the motherfuckers. Morgan was giving out motherfucking bank loans. Goddamn, man, when I went, my homeboy put that story out there too, yo. You see a big ass convoy, ISIS. Brand new Toyotas. Every truck is a brand new Toyota, not some old junk heap they found somewhere and fixed up. Like, yo, how ISIS get a whole fleet of Toyota pickups? They brand new model, and they call Toyota. Toyota say, oh, we don't know. Oh, you don't know. Y'all can't trace none of y'all fucking VIN numbers back to each dealer. When it came out the fucking factory, yo, y'all can't trace that shit back. A favor? Go ahead. That's the thing though, man. Money is not the end all be all, yo. It's motherfucking power and resources. That's the end all be all. Cause what do people do with money? On the tent in the background. All right. Yeah, look it up. I want to finish this science and futurism real quick too, though. But yeah, even that Taliban shit, man, that shit was the Mujahideen. You know what I'm saying? We make our own enemies, yo. Everybody's cool with us as long as we, they doing what we want them to do. As long as they do what we want them to do, y'all cool, man. As soon as you act up a little bit, or if not being your ally anymore suits the agenda for us a little bit better, because we making friends in this area now you the enemy, and we gonna ride with these motherfuckers, and that shit just over and
Remember
over
when
and
people
over.
found the chest belt irritating and would just do the lap belt. And even then, a lot of folks griped about either. Some folks still do, but to most of us, it's not just a habit. We actually feel uncomfortable until we have it on. I would say they probably get to be the same way, except I tend to expect those to be small chairs that could cocoon you in an eye blink instead. Barring that, remember it's not just strapping in on your chair in the bridge. It's not just doing so in the ship's mess for a cup or bulb of coffee and some donut-flavored squeeze paste. It's in the bed, and it would be in the bathroom, except I wouldn't be surprised if most ships don't actually have one. And I don't mean because you can't have a hot water shower in space. That water shortage notion is a holdover of modern tech. No spaceship pulling hours or days of high-G acceleration could give a fig if its crew members felt like taking blisteringly hot, hour-long showers every day, because that water limit has to do with needing energy to recycle that water, and compared to the energy output of the ship's engines, their water recycling energy use is going to look like a rounding error. Rather, it's that you probably won't spend much time outside of your clothes, and there'd be a lot of push to make spacesuits able to be comfortably worn 24/7 that could recycle everything for you, including all your bodily waste, akin to the still suits we see in the novel Dune. That would have a pretty big impact on your lifestyle and subculture too. I could easily see a basic ship suit being the equivalent of a second skin you rarely and maybe even never took off. Anyway, energy is not scarce for anything but the ship's engine and speed, because that is so huge compared to any other energy need. We said earlier that both what is abundant and what is scarce is what drives a culture or subculture's mindset. On a ship, the abundance is energy, because they burn fuel at insane rates, and they can't realistically do anything on that ship that is going to make it really matter if they are soberly efficient or drunkenly wasteful with their juice. There's not much they can use it on either. An interplanetary cargo ship, one past an era of chemical fuels, will not bother growing plants on board because they can recycle their air and water mechanically instead, and ditch waste if they need to. Recreation is unlikely to be a big energy soak, and a hydroponic system is not going to handle sudden changes in gravity strength and direction very well, and serves little point on some fusion-driven ship that is unlikely to ever be out for more than a month at a time before they can resupply. So at most, they might keep seed packets somewhere and the feedstock for a 3D printer to manufacture hydroponic equipment if they needed to, as seeds are ultra-light, and odds are every ship would have a 3D printer. That's what is abundant. What's scarce? Air and water somewhat, but the big one for spaceships is mass. Mass is the big limiter for ships, not habitats. Every kilogram you have has to be pushed up to speed, so every extra bit of radiation shielding, every extra bit of additional reserve air and water, every extra object in your personal luggage, and maybe even every kilogram of fat or muscle on your body is slowing that ship down. So how does that affect mindset? It's not really space so much as mass, so a ship doesn't need to be tight quarters, but they wouldn't want you to fill up a spacious cabin with heavy gear either. You might be encouraged to wear your suit all the time just so they can cut down a little on the exterior radiation shielding, if that suit provides some. They're not going to appreciate you bringing your antique book collection along instead of digital copies. They might be okay with your fish tank though, since the water could be used as a reserve source. They won't want you having anything that isn't easily secured when not in active use. Nothing that is going to fly off and kill someone when the wall suddenly becomes the floor. Light, strong, durable, minimal. Now how far that goes and in what directions is hard to say. Odds are every ship would have its own flavor too when it came to what they were very strict about or very relaxed about. But that's the sort of influences affecting the mindset we'd expect to see. Space is a murderous death pit, empty of everything but radiation and tiny bits of super-fast debris spraying around like shrapnel to kill your ship, millions of kilometers from any rescue, which is more likely to involve vacuuming up your remains than taking you back to a hospital. I suspect it would tend to encourage a pretty disciplined and serious mindset, less so for space habitats, as we'll discuss next week. But our book of the month, Leviathan Wakes, is a great example of authors looking at the environment and crafting how it alters a society, not just physiologically, but culturally, creating its own priorities and customs. If you've seen the show, you know how good it is. And while I normally say the book is always better than the show, that's hard in this case because it really is an excellent book, but the show is so good. Let me instead say that while it is a very solid adaptation, there are quite a lot of differences and a lot more depth in certain areas, and I prefer the chief protagonist, Jim Horden, as depicted in the novel over the show. He still seems to get stuffed into every crisis going on in the solar system, but without that element of reckless lack of forethought the TV version sometimes seems to have. You can pick up a free copy of Leviathan Wakes today. Just use my link in the episode's description, audible.com/Isaac, or text Isaac to 500-500 to get a free book and a 30-day free trial. And that book is yours to keep, whether you stay on with Audible or not. And if you don't enjoy it, you can swap it out for a different book at any time. As mentioned, next week we will be looking more at space habitats with an episode on O'Neill cylinders. Giant cylindrical habitats that we'll see are a lot more comfortable than life on a spaceship is likely to be. For alerts when that and other episodes come out, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button and share it with others. Until next time, Thanks for watching, and have a great week.
You know I gotta love it. Organ harvesting? Oh yeah.
It's an instant game fit for a king or anyone. New Royal Wind, this majestic tender.
Cody.
Taylor about the fucking flex.
We have arrived at the dawn of a new era. Earth, Mars, and the Belt. We will face the unknown together.
Taylor about the fucking flex. Taylor about the fucking flex.
Battery low, please charge now.
Fuck you, speaker. On the average, my pieces are about $3,000, and this isn't for a customer. This is actually me. Yeah, so I just felt like painting myself again, like I always do. But I'm about to get out of here. I gotta get to a good stopping point though.
It's an instant game fit for a king or anyone. New Royal Wind, this majestic 10.
All right, I'm out of here.